Nearly 100 people paint this scene in watercolour. How different can they be? Which ones do you like and why? Hello, I'm Tim Wilmot, watercolour painter and tutor. I organise regular online workshops, and this is a compilation of attendee paintings from my June 2023 online workshop. So most months, watercolour enthusiasts from all over the world join me for approximately a couple of hours paint-along experience where I go through a step-by-step demo and answer everyone's questions along the way. And in June 2023, we painted this scene, Laycock Village of Laycock in the UK. Pretty English UK village. A good exercise in composition, what to remove, what to insert, what to create, perspective as well, values with those shadows, the bright sunshine, trying to get a feeling of the texture of the old buildings as well. Plenty of things for watercolour enthusiasts to get their teeth into. So I'm going to go through the attendee paintings one by one and give a short little critique. It's just my own opinion of these paintings, and hopefully all will be quite positive. I'll first of all start off with my painting though. I'll step up to the stage first of all with my painting and go through that. On the whole, I'm fairly pleased with my painting. I got the composition okay. As you know, or as you can guess, I removed the mini van that was obliterating this kind of area of the composition and replaced that with a fairly simple light car just to the left of the center line and a nice shadow going diagonally across that. The light coming from the left, so shadows going over to the right-hand side. I put in a couple of figures in there as well. Maybe could have gone a little bit darker with those figures, but quite happy with that. And a bit of texture to the ground there as well. In this village, you don't get any parking, any sort of road markings at all, because it is used a lot for filming of period dramas that you may have seen on TV or films. So that's why it's devoid of any road markings, and pretty much as it has been for hundreds of years. I think I got in the warm colour generally of the buildings and the old timber cladding, the frame of the outside of some of those walls as well. Cars on the right hand side, a little bit more tricky to do. We'll see how everyone else gets on with that row of parked cars on the right hand side there. So that's my painting. Let's go through the attendee paintings then one by one. First up then, Alexandra, and yeah, it's quite a nice composition. You've changed quite a lot of things. You've got the street maybe a little bit narrower. You've gone for more of a sort of creamish look of the buildings on the right-hand side. Yeah, so maybe not traditional Laycock, but certainly you've got the feeling of an English village here for sure. I do like that figure walking across the road there. Excellent touch. And also, the nice thing about that figure is it's connecting the shadow that at the bottom of the figure with a car on the right hand side. That car is really nice. That does look like a Mini. We removed the Mini, but we put it on the other side and had it sort of facing up the road. And two good figures there. Maybe the figure on the left could be a little bit darker, being in the shadow, but yeah, lovely scene. Well done, Alexandra. And Anna. Good composition, nice and soft, perhaps a little bit too soft in this middle area here. We could have gone for maybe a bit more light on that right-hand side, but it's really well drawn, good perspective. The figures on the left, I think the heads are just a little bit too small. Good job with the cars though, especially this car here, lurking in the shadows. Yeah, well done, Anna. Thank you very much indeed. And Barb. Good perspective, good drawing, well done with the cars. Perhaps the cars on the right hand side could be just a little bit higher. We've got a feeling of a bit of a slope to the road. They could be just, this white car, for example, could be maybe around about sort of there, just move it up just a tiny bit. But the perspective is really good, captured the essence of the colour of the buildings really well. Nice light there at the end of the street, good figures and great shadows. Well done, Barb. And Bettina, yeah, nice colours of the buildings, very nice colour of the buildings, excellent colour on the shadows, nice and cool the shadows. Perhaps a tiny bit overworked in this area here, and the figures could, I think the figures need less of the lighter area around their sort of legs, that space around their legs. So just try and maybe have more of a solid colour to that. Yeah, that car looks a little bit overworked, but good job with the perspective, cars on the other side. Again, a little bit overworked on that colour. I think a car that's in the shade like that doesn't need so much detail on it, and the paying attention to the windscreen and the wheels and so on. Just try and keep it simple. Good texture of the road surface as well. Well done, Bettina. Bronwyn. Yeah. Nice perspective. Got a bit soft, I think, with the shadow. Could have gone a little bit darker in this area here, Bronwyn, and maybe have a harder edge to those shadows, just make them stand out a little bit more. And also I would try and avoid drawing a pencil line for those shadows, particularly where the shadows are quite light or quite transparent. It sort of shows that pencil line. Cars are really well drawn, very good figures, especially that right-hand figure there, excellent. And the house is brilliant. You captured their character very well. Well done, Bronwyn. And Bruno. Oh, I do like this car, sort of pointing in towards that bottom left-hand corner. It's a nice angle for that car. The perspective is really good. Very, very good on the perspective, and all those cars as well. I love that car there on that right-hand side. Sometimes I mention trying to avoid a really well-drawn object actually on the periphery of the scene, on the edge of the scene. And but I think you get away with it there. I think that car looks really excellent. And then these figures here, guy with his elbow on the car, having a little bit of chat. There's a bit of a story going on here. I like it. Yeah, well done. Fantastic one, Bruno. Well done, thank you. And Buck. Yeah, you've made the street a little bit narrower. Doesn't matter. We still captured the essence of the scene. Very good with the perspective. I like the texture on the road surface as well. Good value, good colour for the shadows. These figures are very good indeed. Excellent. Attention to detail with the little tea shop sign there on the left-hand side, and those plants going up the roadside. Yeah, nice one. Perhaps the roofs are pitched just a little bit too high, just a tiny bit by a few degrees, but a fantastic painting. Well done, Buck. And Catherine, very warm on this. I think maybe your photo, I bet your image is a little bit light in this. I should have said that at the beginning, that the photos, the images submitted by the attendees is photographed on their own devices, and sometimes they have a tendency to be a little bit darker than reality. So just bear that in mind. If we come across an image that looks a little bit dark, I bet it's a lot lighter in reality. But super scene, good job with perspective, nice bright colours for the buildings there, good job with the cars. I think that car there, the wheels might be just a little bit too close together, or the front wheel needs to be a little bit further over to the right hand side. This car here, a little bit too narrow, could be stretched out a bit more. Good job with the figures, nice value with the shadows. Just be careful, a little bit of overworking of in the shadow area. Just try and do it all in one. And yeah, I think it's the consistency of the paint. Maybe it's just a little bit too thick in places there. But lovely scene, and good job with the sky as well. Really got the feeling of the light coming from the left-hand side there. Well done, Catherine. And Christy. Very good job on the drawing of the buildings. That perspective is fantastic. And also the sense of depth as well, in that we've got darker values on the right-hand side there. But as we go into the distance, we're going a little bit lighter, a little bit less detailed, softer edges. Yeah, excellent. Good job with the cars. You've got two cars on the left-hand side. Excellent. And the figures as well. Very, very good job on the figures. The one on the left looks a little bit static, I think, with the position of the arms, but two very good figures. And the actual texture on the ground here and the bottom left-hand corner, fantastic. Really do feel that sort of gritty surface, and then we go up to a little bit of crazy paving there up to that doorway. Yeah, good job with the textures of the buildings there, Christy. But that right-hand side with the perspective, the sense of depth, all those cars, brilliant. Well done. Colin, so I think your image is a little bit cool. I bet, again, just saying a minute or so ago about some people's images being a little bit too dark. I bet yours is a little bit cool. I'm sure it's a bit warm in reality. I like that nice angle, that hard edge on the car. Really creates a little bit of impact and a bit of a focal point as well with that car. Good job with the perspective. The other cars are brilliantly painted. Very good figures. Could be a bit darker on this left-hand side, I think, with the wall there and the shadow. Just a tiny bit darker to get a bit more impact. Again, like others, just be careful with the pencil line showing through the edge of the shadows there. Maybe, well, just practice trying to just paint directly onto your paper where the shadow is going to be without the need for drawing those pencil lines. I bet you can do it, Colin. Fantastic painting. Yeah, well done. And another Colin. We've got two Collins. Yeah, I think we've got two Collins here. So Colin number 2. Good job with perspective. The cars on the right-hand side, I don't think that red, white, blue reminds me of someone's flag, maybe the French flag backwards. But yeah, just looks a little bit weird. It stands out just a bit too much. But other than that, good job with the perspective. Car here needs to be a little bit wider. And the shadows are a tiny bit overworked. Looks like you might have lifted off just a little bit too much. Figures are very good. Just the right size. Trying to avoid that lighter air around those figures as well. Maybe try and connect them just a little bit more to their surroundings. That building there, excellent. Yeah, well done. Thanks, Colin. Colin number 2. Right, Dave P. Okay, so we've got a wider feeling. It's like it's sort of stretched out a little bit with that building there, Dave, in the background. And these buildings are really well drawn. I don't think they got four levels, but good job with perspective. It looks like the street, the way you've drawn it, the street sort of widens out just a little bit more. So maybe that street level could have come down just a little bit more like that, rather than being sort of horizontal. Makes the street look just a tiny bit too wide. Left-hand side, fantastic. Love the soft edge, that shadow. Well done with that. Nothing overworked. Little bit overworked though with that car. I would avoid that dry brush mark with the brush technique there, Dave. Go for a little bit more moisture on the brush. All right. These figures on the left-hand side, excellent. Again, we've got a bit of a story going on. They're having a bit of a conversation about whatever's going on in the village or world events or whatever. Yep, excellent position and pose of those figures. Well done, Dave. Thank you. Fauzia, very colourful and a good combination of warms and cools. The warmth, what particularly stands out, the warmth of those rooftops and the colour of the shadows. You've gone. I know, Fauzia, you go for more of that pen line and wash type style, and as as I say on all of my workshops, you don't need to follow my style. I'm just interpreting the scene in my own particular way, my own particular watercolor technique. But if you want to do liner wash, no problem whatsoever. If you want to go tight, rather loose, particularly with the architecture here, no problem at all. It's really nice to see everyone's interpretation of the same scene. I think we're lost a little bit with the cars. They kind of merge in a little bit too much to the base of the buildings. It's drawn really well. Perspective is fantastic. Likewise, that car there, we're losing it just a little bit too much. Maybe it's the value of the car. The value of the building behind is similar to the value of the car, albeit it's red and that's brown, that's red, and the value of the shadows. Maybe just go for a little bit more contrast. You've got it there with these buildings. These buildings are exceptional, fantastic. Those buildings there really captured the character of Laycock really well. I love that blue though. That's a beautiful blue. Just be careful when going in and just knowing when to ease off a little bit on such a strong colour like that. But a fantastic colourful scene and a different interpretation of Laycock in line and wash. Thanks very much, Fausia. And Gwen, let's just zoom in a little bit of this. Yeah, good job with the perspective. Certainly got a feeling of depth by pushing back that car into the distance, and we've got a lot more of that foreground to play with. I love that shadow, the line of that shadow going down like that. And also the edge of the shadow. Look at that nice soft edge as well. You haven't gone for that sort of cool shadow that I did, but I think that equally works. We've got a subtle variety of different hues in there, some warms in that area there, a little bit of coolness there. Good job with the cars, perspective, figures. Yeah, really good figures. Well done, Gwen. Thank you. Or maybe just a little bit of a lean maybe on, or is it the image? Yeah, perhaps the angle of your camera might have created that little bit of a lean there. Just thinking, was there a bit of a lean on the edge of those buildings? But fantastic. Well done, Gwen. Ian. Now I know Ian does quite soft pictures, soft interpretations of the scene, and we've got another one here. This is Ian's particular style. I think the perspective is generally good. With the cars, it looks like from a perspective point of view, we're looking down on them a little bit, like we're in a first floor window or we're on the top of a step ladder on that right hand side. I think on the left hand side, we're better, all right. I personally would prefer we've got a lot of middle values here, maybe just insert just a little bit of a darker value somewhere in the shadows or, particularly on that left-hand side there, just to create a bit more impact. Also try and avoid the lighter area around those figures as well. The figures are very good, especially on the left-hand side there, Ian. Just the right proportion to the buildings. Yeah, nice sky. Well done. And next one is Jaladi. Zoom in there. Oh, we've got the village bike out, just as you would see, maybe outside of a tea shop. Nice attention to detail with the buildings on the right hand side. I like it. You've got the feeling a little bit of a thatched cottage, which you often get in houses around that area with the thatched roofs rather than the tiled roofs. Yeah, very nice. These figures are good, but I think there's a little bit too much light on that around that left-hand figure. I think it would look better. We've got the left-hand side or the right-hand side of the house coming down like that. Then we've got some bushes or planters or a car in the shade, and then we've got that would be the top edge of the shadow. So I think that would look a little bit better to close up that gap there. But nice touch with the village bicycle. Yeah, and a typical English feel. Perhaps the road could have just a few marks on it, just to sort of make it less perfect, if you like. Just a few little dry brush marks to give us a feeling of some tire marks or something like that. Thanks, Geladi. We've got Jan. Right. Oh, we've got somebody trying to get into their car, or obviously succeeding in getting into their car. Perspective. Maybe we're looking down a little bit too much, like a sort of drone type shot. Try and think about perspective and generally where we were was fairly level. All right. So we're going to have, the tops of the cars sort of all in line. So maybe these cars here there could be one car there, and there could be another car there, back of the car, something like that. All right, and then the figure there. I think that might look just a little bit better on that scene, if that's what you were trying to get the impression of. Perspective of the building on the right hand side though, really good. Captured the character of those really well, and on the left hand side also nice texture on the road. Going back to what I said with the last painting about trying to make the road surface a little bit more, give it a bit more character, and we've got that here with those different intensities of values and a little bit of that texture down there in the foreground. But the cars, putting aside my comment on perspective, those cars are really well drawn. I would avoid that one in the bottom right corner from a perspective point of view. I don't think we don't need it really at all down there, Jan. All right. Right. Jean. Good composition, nice perspective. I like this edge of the shadow. Very nice. I mean, that's what watercolor does. That kind of that when you lay down a wash and you haven't mucked about with it, Jean. You laid it down. You just let it do its own thing. Maybe the edge is just a little bit too hard. Could have gone for maybe a little bit of a softer edge on that, but I do like that organic feeling to the edge of that shadow. Right, next. Perhaps with the brush, to get a fresher feel, try and get a good point to your brush. It looks like the brush has a little bit of a rounded tip to it, so we're not getting those crisp little marks. Good job with the figures, very, very good indeed. And the colour of the buildings, yep, excellent. Those cars are very good indeed. Well done, Jean. Jean and Jeannie. Is that the same one? I think it's the same one. Jean and Jeannie. There we go. Right, Joe. Oh, and there's another story going on. Couple here pointing to the cyclist racing down the road, maybe saying, giving them directions, or don't ride too fast down the street, maybe. Good job with the perspective. I think the image, I bet the photo is just a little bit darker than reality, so I'm trying to imagine it a little bit lighter, but plenty of figures. We've got one or two figures on the right hand side, and then down at the end of the street, more figures there. Nice bit of light on those buildings. Good job with the perspective. Cars are really good as well. Just zoom back out a bit more. Cars are good as well. Nice shadows here. I would try and avoid this little bit of that sort of dry brush mark just on the edge of the shadow. It doesn't really need it. Just just trying to overwork the shadow too much, and avoid, again, the lighter area around the outline of the legs of the figure. The shadow is going to be lighter than this figure's legs. So just go in with the shadow first of all. Obviously with watercolor we're painting generally light towards dark. So paint the shadow first. That's a little bit lighter than the legs, then paint the figure after that. But well done for including those figures and a cyclist in motion. Yeah, and just the right Just the right position for that cyclist as well, sort of riding into the scene. So that was Joe. And Joe with an E. Yep, a slightly different perspective. Maybe with those figures, they look like they're just a little bit too close to the building. And I think they could be over to the right-hand side just a little bit, Joe. But other than that, perspective is very good. Like these cars on the right-hand side. They look like very posh, sporty luxury cars to me. This one more mid-range. I do like that car though. Got a little sort of a pinkish feeling to it. A bit like it's like a Fiat 500 or something like that. Good texture on the road. I love the way that you've done your brush marks. We really do have a feeling of perspective there, these marks, and they kind of lead the viewer into the scene. Yeah, well done, Joe. And John D. Good job with the perspective on the right-hand side. I like that yellow glow of those buildings, super. This car here might be a little bit stretched out, a little bit too long there, but the other cars are really good. This one here could be just a little bit wider. John, as you know, sometimes we chat about this and maybe just a little bit overworked with some of the detail. And I would say with this one, maybe if there was a lighter area in the scene somewhere, that might make it pop a little bit more. For example, the right-hand side of that car, if that was lighter, or if those buildings in the distance were lighter against a darker background. And just avoid the use of the white paint as well, especially in the shadows there. And it's got a little bit, the actual consistency of it, the ratio of paint to water, just a little bit too weak there. But a lovely painting. Well done, John. Right, John M. Let's just zoom in a bit more on this one. Right, nice composition. I think we've got a van there, a delivery van. Those figures, try not to have, again, as with a few other people, just try and avoid that lighter area, that kind of halo effect around the figures. Just makes them stand out a bit more. They are in the shadows, so we want to try and blend them in with the shadows, particularly the lower parts of the body. Perhaps the top parts of the body might be silhouetted. The top part of the figure might be silhouetted against a lighter background, but just avoid that. Good job with the perspective. Cars are really good. Love this shadow. Very nice edge to that shadow. And that little bit of a glow here in the foreground as well. Nice texture on the road. With the brush directions on the road, John, you've got your lines sort of going a little bit like that. I would say with your brush, try and do this sort of effect. All right, so maybe with the brush, start at the end of the street and then drag it down that way, so that you are going to get a sort of subtle feeling of the lines leading us up into the scene, the end of the street, helping with the perspective a little bit more. But a lovely scene, and good job with the sky as well. Thank you very much, John. And Kazim. Yep, lovely scene. Good job with the perspective. Love the shadow here in the bottom left-hand corner, and so many colours. Lots of warms and cools. We've got blue, we've got green, we've got brown, we've got a bit more green over there. Excellent. Good job with the cars, especially like those cars on the right hand side. They are very, very good indeed. Yeah, well done with the cars. And excellent figures. Two figures here, sunglasses, two figures in the distance, dog, little doggy as well. Excellent. Well done, Kazim. And Lillian, let's just zoom in a little bit more on this one. Right, Lillian. Yeah, I like the way the cars are standing out there with a bit of light on them. Very, very good indeed. Perhaps the right hand side or the front of this car could be just a little bit darker, and maybe the car might end about there, I think. So it's just a little bit too long, but good job on those cars. And that one there, I like the soft feeling to it. Again, just avoid this kind of halo effect in the lower part of those figures. We could have the shadow, perhaps that shadow could have a bit more of a harder edge coming out there and connect those figures. It's got a nice style to it, that sort of softness, the soft edges that you've got on the right hand side, and this building here at the end of the street. Yeah, and nice feeling with those lines as well, going street, and little doggy also. Yeah, well done. Thanks so much, Lillian. And Linda, let's just zoom in a bit on this one. Very colourful. Perspective, I think the building is on the right hand side. We might need to adjust a couple of things. So maybe the edge of the roofs could be going up just a little bit, I think, Linda. The bottom of the street looks good. I'd probably move the cars up a little bit and make them just a tiny, tiny bit larger. And this car here could be a little bit further down the street. Figures are good, but they're just a little bit too light. I think they're kind of the same value as the buildings around them. So I would, well, the top of this figure looks good. You've got a bit of a light top to that figure, so that certainly stands out, and the darker colour bits. Maybe this one on the left hand side might be just a little bit too light, Linda, in that area there. Very nice shadows, but just trying to avoid going over the shadows twice. We've got a bit of a, looks like you've got a couple of layers to those shadows. Try and do it to get that freshness. Try and do the shadows in one, all right, with as big a brush as you can. But a lovely scene. Beautiful colours as well, the warms and cools, well done. Lynn. Let's just get right. Yeah, now Lynn's, we had a cyclist in this kind of area on one of the previous paintings. I think those figures there, that's an excellent place for a couple of figures, and also having a larger figure and a smaller figure, just that little bit of diversity there does help as well. Good job with the buildings, the perspective is fantastic. The cars, really good as well. This car here, excellent. Also, the figures, shadows, shadow edge. Yeah, very nice. Oh, you've got a little bit of foliage on the backs of those buildings. I think that works also to give it more of a sort of country feeling, give it more context of where it is as well. And I like that little bit of blue on these sort of climbing, could be, I'm trying to think now what climbing plant might have a blue flower, but it looks good anyway. Yeah, well done. And Nydia. Very bright, very colourful. Perspective is good. I think we might have just a slight lean. It might be your photograph might have a slight lean to it. The cars are very good. Yeah, this car here on the left hand side, very good. Shadows, nice shadow. Bit of texture too. Chippings and grit down the bottom left hand corner. Figures are good as well. Very nice figures. Yes, a lovely painting. Could we have something, maybe a darker shadow there between those two, between the two buildings, with the light coming from the left-hand side? Maybe it could be just a little bit darker in that area there, maybe. That car there needs to have a wider windscreen as well. A little bit like that. I think that might make it a little bit better. But lovely scene, nothing overworked, beautiful colours. Yeah, fantastic. Well done, Nydia. And Pablo. Oh, we've got a couple of cyclists coming down the road. Now, I think those cyclists, and the cars, they sort of stand out a little bit too much. I'm not sure if have you cut those out maybe and stuck them on. I'm not sure if that was your technique, Pablo, and maybe cut out some cars. Well, it's a different technique, isn't it? I do like those cyclists though. They're just the right size for the scene and the context of where they are. The perspective is very good. Perhaps that building there a little bit too narrow. With the shadows, we could get in darker shadows and a harder edge to those shadows. I think Pablo with the light coming from the left-hand side, but maybe try and get in a darker area in here and a bit of a harder edge to those shadows. I'm not sure what this area is up here as well. Or maybe that was the side of the house, just pointing towards us, I guess, on that top left corner. And the picture is maybe just a little bit too steep there, but I do like the style. And well, you certainly win the competition of getting the most cyclists in there. Well done. And Pat, let's just zoom in on Pat's a little bit more. There we go. Yeah, nice composition. Good job with the perspective. I like that little bit of a lean to the street as well, like a sort of top left corner to the bottom right. And also the feeling of, in this area here, a bit of a light, bit of some reflected light. Don't know where it's coming from. Doesn't matter. I really like it. So, yeah, good job on the perspective. Nice colour of the buildings. Maybe that window there might stand out just a little bit too much in there. Could have gone a little bit darker perhaps on some of these buildings on the left-hand side, but having said that, I do like that glow. Just trying to avoid going over the shadows a couple of times as well, but a lovely painting and nice sky. Got a bit of atmosphere with that sky. Right, Ravi B. Yep, nice, good job with the perspective and the houses. Maybe that the street might be just a little bit too wide. We could have with the bottom of the buildings going down a little bit more, and with the perspective of the top just going up a little bit more as well, to try and make this road appear not so wide. But other than that, good job with perspective. Lovely cars also. The texture of the walls, the colour of the building, fantastic. The figures there might be just a little bit too large for the, unless this car was like a low-lying sporty car. I think those figures might be just a little bit too big. I think those figures are the right size. I think that car needs to be made a little bit bigger. So imagine the windscreen being there, and then we've got the top of the car, and then the bottom of the car, and then a shadow going out the right. I think that might look a little bit better in size. But beautiful scene. Good job with the textures, nothing overworked, nice sky as well, well done. Ravi N. Yeah, good job with the perspective. The cars on the right-hand side there. I love this building here, Ravi, where you've done that dry brush mark with the timbers. The shadows are good as well. Nice strong lines here leading us into the scene. Certainly got the character of the road surface and that little bits of stones and chippings there. Figures are very good as well. Yeah, I think it's all right. With that white car on the right hand side, I think we might be making the wheels stand out just a little bit too much. I would have tried and subdue them just a little bit more, just to blend them in. But it's a lovely scene. Well done, Ravi. Roger, a fairly soft feeling to it. Good job with the perspective. The building here, this building here needs to be a little bit larger, I think, and push back a bit more, and trying to get the feeling of the base of that building being about there. All right. So we've got the row of the buildings there. That's good. The edge of the shadows, I wouldn't. You might have sort of, with your brush, sort of flicked it a little bit from left to right. Maybe, perhaps you're trying to get that sort of soft edge of the shadow. Just trying to avoid that. The shadow on that car here, this shadow here, could be just a little bit darker as well. Figures are fantastic, just the right size, really well done. Yeah, that looks like they've got a little bit of a lean on them. Maybe they've been up the pub and they've just had a little bit too much to drink coming down the road there. Those cars on the right side are excellent, particularly this white car. That is so good. Yeah, well done, Roger. And Rosella, let's just zoom in a little bit on Rosella's. There we are. Yeah. Nice composition, nice perspective. Very good job with the houses on the right-hand side and the cars parked there. The size of the car on the left-hand side, these two figures as well, excellent. The watercolor technique of this bloom. I know some people are kind of they either like blooms or they don't like blooms. It's one of those sort of Marmite things. You either like it or you hate it. I personally quite like it, and I think this is a super effect that you've got in there, Rosella, in those shadows. A few others have done it as well, and that's just what watercolor does. Yeah, really nice scene. Well done, Rosella. Sally. Yeah, I like the way that you've done the streets on that right-hand side. We've certainly got the feeling of the eyes being drawn up that side of the street there. Maybe that white car just a little bit too small compared to the other parked cars there, but yeah, really nice job on that right-hand side. I'm not sure if we need something in this area here. We've got a lot of empty space. Figures are good. The left-hand figure here, very good indeed. These two figures they kind of get lost a little bit by being a similar value to their surroundings, but maybe they could be, I mean, your figures are so good. Maybe Sally, we could have had some figures walking up the street, maybe just to fill in that area there. I think with the cars, with the right-hand side of your street being so good, maybe if there was some bigger figures, maybe in that area there, you know, if there are a couple of figures, maybe just imagine that in that space, that might just balance the composition a bit. Like the texture on the road though, fantastic. Shadows, shadow edges, brilliant. Yeah, I do like that, those buildings, well done. Thanks, Sally. And Sanjuan. Oh, nice bit of light. And birds. I don't think we've had birds from anyone else, but a nice way of filling in that space in a big empty sky. So nice sense of light there. Cars are very well drawn. A little bit of a slope on the gradient of the road here, but the cars, I do like those cars. Really nice figures. Perhaps the heads might be just a tiny bit too big, or the legs are a little bit too short, I think, for their body on those figures. But other than that, the figures are the right size. Could be a bit darker, I reckon, on the building on the left-hand side, just a tiny bit darker. But nice edge to that shadow. Again, avoid. Is there a little bit of pencil line there? You hardly notice it. You've gone quite soft, haven't you, with that pencil line? But a nice edge to those shadows as well. Yeah, I do like that. That's the first thing I looked at when I showed this image is that light, that glow there. That sort of soft glow, soft on the right hand side, hard edge here. Very nice indeed. Thanks, Sanjivan. And Saro. Just zoom in a bit more. There we go. Yeah, I reckon, again, I reckon with Saro's image, it's a little bit dark. I bet your painting in reality is a lot lighter than this. Beautiful painting. Good job with those figures there. That's a nice place for those figures. It balances out everything so well. Two figures, car, two figures. Yeah, just as you would do that street. Perspective is fantastic. Cars on the right hand side, very good indeed. The brush strokes, the direction of those strokes on the road surface, very good as well. Yeah, maybe this car here could be a little bit wider with that windscreen. Just looks a little bit too narrow, that windscreen there. But fantastic painting, well done, Sarah. And Sylvie. Yeah, I like it. You've got lots of colours in it. Like if I just zoom into the road for a second, we've got yellow, we've got a warmer red, like a lighter red, bit of green, bit of blue. Fantastic. Good job with the perspective generally. I think we might have a little bit of a lean. Not sure if it's the angle of your photograph, but it looks like there's a little bit of a lean like that, so to speak, leaning over to the left-hand side just a tiny bit. Maybe it's the angle of your photo. But good job with perspective. I like all the textures going on here in the bottom left-hand corner. The figures are very good as well. That car as well, got a bit of character about that car. Yeah, I think it's really nice. Excellent. Well done. Thanks, Sylvie. And Teresa. Right. Yeah, now with the perspective on the right hand side, I think we're nearly there. I think the cars, yeah, I think the cars, that car there looks good. Just avoid too much detail with the car in the shade, in the shadows there. And these cars on the right hand side, I think they need to be a little bit higher. And also, again, the use of, I would say with you, Teresa, just avoid doing the windscreens in so much detail, all right? I think they'll turn out a little bit better by going simpler. Good job with the figures. Figures are excellent. That figure there in distance, really, really good. Yeah, and the building on the left-hand side, nice sort of golden glow to it, contrasting with the cooler shadows. With the shadows, yeah, have you gone over those shadows a couple of times maybe? Just try and keep them as fresh as you can. And the pencil line doesn't show too much there. Yeah, so just a little bit too much detail on that car, I reckon. But other than that, beautiful. Good job with the sky as well. And perspective generally of the buildings, fantastic. Well done, Teresa. And Victor. Yeah, perspective very good. Nice group of figures. Nice balance, those figures. Those two on the right-hand side. Well, let's go through two there, one there, two here. They're all placed in different areas and different sizes, and that makes it a little bit more interesting. It's got a good balance to it. Good balance to it as well. Perspective is good then. Lovely shadows on the left-hand side. Yeah, excellent. These figures on the right-hand side. That on the right-hand side of that right-hand figure, I would just avoid that little lighter area there, and also the light underneath the car. Try and simplify all this a little bit more, and keep the light on the back of the car as well. But building's good, particularly on the right-hand side. Buildings are very good, nice colour, and contrasting with the cooler shadows. Well done. And I think our last one is Vicente. And okay, good job with the perspective. I think you are maybe overworking the edges of some of these objects, like the cars, for example. So just go a little bit easier on this thicker paint. So use a little bit more water. Try and avoid the use of the white paint though, but good composition. I love these shadows down here, and I have pointed out with a few people going in with those transparent layers, but it turned out quite nicely here, that sort of brown there with the blue, that warm against the cool. Good figures on that left hand side. Again, avoid that kind of halo effect around the figures. Connect them a little bit more with their surroundings. So while I'm on Vincente's painting, thanks very much everyone for watching all of those. If you want to take part in future events, just go up to my event site, crowdcast.com/@Tim Wilmot. Love to have you on board, and we welcome painters of all different levels. But thanks for watching and sitting through this. If you've been through them all, I hope you picked up something, and please, just my own opinion of some of these paintings. But thanks very much, all of the attendees that attended that June workshop, and looking forward to seeing you in the following months to come. Thanks very much indeed. Bye-bye.